the Revenue Law Amendment Act to establish the two-pot system enabling members of the retirement funds access to their savings without having to resign or cash out their entire pension fund. We expect the President to soon sign the Pension Fund Amendment Bill. The remaining legislative amendment enabling two-pot pension reforms to become into effect, bringing relief to millions of workers who are drowning in debt. We strongly condemn those employers and pension funds who are confusing workers with misinformation as we prepare for the implementation of the two-pot pension reforms. We are working closely with the Treasury, the Financial Sector Conduct Authority, and the pension fund at NETLEC to ensure the smooth implementation of the two-pot pension fund reforms on the 1st of September 2024. COSATU and its affiliates will be following up with the FSCA to identify defaulters after it revealed that more than 4,000 employers are behind on making contribution towards workers' retirement funds. Those employers who have failed to pay workers' pension fund must be charged and made to pay without delay and must be named and shamed. The increase in the national minimum wage of 8.5% to 58 cents per hour in March is a massive victory benefiting millions, in particular the farm workers, domestic workers, cleaning, hospitality, construction, and other vulnerable workers. Whilst we celebrate this victory, we must remain deeply concerned about scores of delinquent employers who are still paying workers less than the national minimum wage. COSATU will work closely with the Department of Employment and Labor to force these employers to comply. On the election on the 29th May was the most challenging our allies. The African National Congress, the South African Communist Party, and ourselves as the Congress South African Trade Union have faced since 1994. Leading up to the poll, the Federation and its affiliates crossed the country determined to defend the ANC and the alliance, as well as securing a mandate to return to office nationally and provincially. Despite the ANC not attaining the 51% necessary to form a majority government on its own, we are humbled that millions of South Africans entrust it to lead the government of national unity. We expect the ANC to recognize its election result as a clear message from voters for the party to pull up its socks if it is to continue governing. COSATU will continue to hold the ANC accountable while working closely with both allies to rebuild voter confidence and ensure it remains as a majority party. COSATU remains deeply opposed to the new liberal policies of the Democratic Alliance. The DA has a history of opposing all labor reforms seeking to improve the lives of workers. Its tendency to harbor the unprecedented racists such as Ronald House and Ian Cameron within its ranks adds insult to injuries. We call on National Prosecution Authority to criminally charge House for his racist utterances. If the DA is to be part of the GNU, then it must abandon its anti-worker and anti-transformation agenda. We expect the ANC as the leader of the government of national unity to ensure that government is biased towards the working class and defend the hard-won gains, rights of workers and accelerate the transformation agenda. COSATU welcomes the GNU's declaration of intent commitment to protect workers' rights and to engage with labor, business and civil society on the GNU's policy platform that was included in the differences to the Federation is concerned. The Federation will help facilitate dialogue with social partners at NEDLAC to contribute meaningfully towards the GNU's policy mandate. Equally scared to the Federation is for the GNU to continue on the path towards rolling out a national health insurance, building a comprehensive social security, intensifying the war on crime and corruption, investing in developmental state and well-resourced police public service, enabling the employment equity and broad-based black economic empowerment, supporting the African agenda and solidarity with the struggling nations internationally, including the Palestinian people. It is imperative the Government of National Unity policy mandate be anchored on the ANC Manifesto and guided by the Constitution and rule of law. The Alliance fully expects President Ramaphosa to consult it on the composition of the cabinet. COSATU congratulates former leaders of the movement who have been elected to Parliament and the provincial legislation, and trust that they will continue to wage a working-class struggle in their new deployments. South Africa's economy has stagnated since 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The slight recovery in 2021 was short-lived as the growth has since remained weak. The crisis at Eskom and Transnet contribute to the decline. COSATU commends Eskom workers and the Eskom board for 3 months of no load shedding. Equally important is to work being done at the Transnet to ensure our ports and freight rail run efficiently and port congestion is overcome. The marginal drop in GDP in the first quarter of this year raised the concerns that the 42% of unemployment rate, 60% for youth, may worsen. We've seen an increasing number of employers announcing plans to retrench, particularly in the mining, transport, retail, and textile industry. COSATU expects the GNU to move with speed to stimulate the economy as soon as cabinet is in place by abandoning austerity measures that have characterized the stagnant state of economy in recent years. We also call on business to assist the new government by creating decent jobs and halting retrenchment, as the economy cannot afford to lose a single job. The CEC has also resolved to exercise our right under Section 77 of the Labour Relations Act and to launch a nationwide program towards a national day of action in defense of workers' hard-won constitutional and labor rights, as well as collective bargaining in both the public and private sectors. In the build-up the National Day of Action, COSATU affiliates are expected to lead campaigns in defense of jobs given the Section 189 across industry. The Federation is humbled by the recognition of its leadership role with the election of its President Zingi Swalowsi to serve on the International Labour Organization governing body. This is an affirmation of the role of COSATU's commitment to advancing workers' rights and our role in the global labour movement. That's the end of our statement as per the 3 days Central Executive Committee when it was closed on Thursday the 20th. Thank you very much, Comrade Zanella.
We'll do questions now. First one, we'll take 3, and 2, and is there a third hand? No. You can start. Please start by telling us your name and the platform that you represent.
Morning, Alpha Ramushwana here from Eyewitness News. So we expect the President to announce his cabinet anytime from tonight, hopefully. What are your expectations when it comes to his soon-to-be announced cabinet? What happens if the DA is offered, the labor and employment portfolio? How will COSATU feel about that? And how do you feel about the DA also being offered some of the portfolios within the economic cluster? We do know that the ANC wants to keep those. We do know that the DA also wants those. How do you feel about the fact that the DA could possibly be offered those key portfolios? And we are also hearing that the DA wants about 8 or 9 ministers in cabinet. Do you feel that that's too much? And you've mentioned that the policy of the GNU should be anchored on the ANC's manifesto. Don't you think that's going to clash? Because there's about 10 political parties in the GNU. It doesn't make sense for it to be anchored on one political party when all these parties have different manifestos that could be used to help South Africans. Thank you.
Dr. from the SABC. Mine is also around the statement of intent. I know the last time I spoke to the SACP and COSATU and the NUM's policy conference, you had said that you're going to be working with the ANC within the negotiating team to draft that statement as to ensure that the workers are protected here. Did you form part of that process of drafting this statement? And where then do we see the workers being accommodated in this statement of intent? And also with the consultations, I understand that there were 5 options that were put on the table in terms of how then you would want the ANC to move, either with the government of national unity retain or come back as a minority in government and the LACs work with the DA. Maybe give us a sense of your understanding and your conversations with the ANC around this government of national unity and how it's going to work according to your understanding.
Oh, there. Okay.
Well, Alpha had like 4 questions.
Okay. No, is it fine? No, thanks, and once again, good morning, colleagues. Maybe let me start by saying that our statement is more of our CC, the outcome of the CC, rather than the government of national unity. Yes, we'll speak about it there. So Eyewitness News, the expectations on the government and a whole lot of questions we've asked about the portfolios the DA is demanding, economic clusters, labor, and so on and so on. We have come to accept as a country and as a labor movement that constitutionally it is the prerogative of the president of the country to put up together an executive of a government. We also come to appreciate that these are not one of those previous elections where the ANC or one party will have overwhelmingly won and they alone reserve the right to constitute a government. So I appreciate the engagements that must happen among the political parties that have participated in the campaign for the elections and ultimately won some votes or voted by South Africans. So our expectations really, with or without a DA in cabinet, is that we should not experience a reversal of the progress we have made over the past 30 years. In the economic trajectory, in the rights of the majority of the working class, in the what we call the progressive policies that seeks to alleviate the poverty of our people, be it the national minimum wage, the national health insurance, the basic conditions of employment, the Employment Equity Act, the affirmative action, all of those policies that the ANC-led government have always been at the forefront of implementing. So that's in a nutshell that we expect, irrespective of who is going to be put up together as a cabinet. The inclusion of the DA clearly doesn't seem to be something that can be avoided now, now that they are part of the government of national unity, despite our opposition to it, which we maintain. So their inclusion in a cabinet, for instance, on the economic cluster, it will depend which economic policy they are going to be implementing. For as long as the conduct or the mandate of any cabinet minister will be in line with the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, it will be in line with the need to change the living and the working conditions of the South Africans. I think that will appreciate. We can't tell the president who to put in which position. We have our views, but obviously we can't tell the president which position to give to who. Because we don't know whether or not it will make difference whether the DA is in the economic class or any other portfolio, whether it will make any difference. The fact is the DA is there now in the government of national unity. SABC, we had hoped so, Katlego, that because the statement of intent and the things that is supposed to be contained in the vote of it supposed to be taking into consideration the interests of all concerned, ourselves included. Sadly, it turned out that actually it's a statement of intent of political parties who contested the election. So no, we did not contribute in the drafting of the statement of the intent. We did not contribute a single sentence there. We were briefed about it. We had our views. We supported some. We had concern about some. But at the end of the day, it is a statement of intent of people who intend on getting into a marriage. And as you will know, we are not part of that marriage as COSATU. The consultations on the modalities or the options, I'm sure you know that that train has long left. Actually, by the time we had an opportunity to engage with our allies, the announcement was already made. Yes, you will know that at the time you interviewed us, we had our various options, including that one of a minority government by the ANC. But by the time an opportunity presented itself for the engagement with our allies, the announcement by the executive committee of the ANC was already made. So all our options that we had could no longer be entertained. I think I'll stop that.
Yeah, no, I don't think very much, President, and thank you very much for Comrade to ask those questions. President has answered a number of questions, but let me come back on the issue of the ANC manifesto. Our hope is that the ANC manifesto will not be put into a dustbin, because as workers we contributed to the ANC manifestos. As President Mike has said, it is unfortunately that we're in the situation where we are today with the government of national unity, where it involves almost about, this morning they were saying about 10 parties in those who are there. But we would be very happy if the ANC manifesto not being thrown into a dustbin. But secondly, is that as Comrade Mike has said, we will not decide for the ANC, but we will be very happy if people who are appointed in portfolio committees, for an example, the trade and industry, Department of Labor, its public service, is people who will be able to advocate the interests of the workers and the interests of the public. So if we are going to be consulted, we'll be able to put what we think the President of the Republic of South Africa should do in those portfolios. So we can't say we expect this one to be here, but our call and our hope is that anybody who's going to be appointed must respect the rights of the workers. Thank you very much.
Any more questions?
Sorry, I'm so sorry. Just out of curiosity, you mentioned that if you're going to be approached by the ANC to offer in your own input, were you not approached, were you not consulted during this whole negotiation process? Do you not have a say as an alliance partner?
Well, as Comrade Michael, there's another question, maybe through you, Comrade Sané.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Howard with UFM. I'm adding to that question to say, it would appear you were not consulted, so just clarify if this is what the alliance is, whether what you are seeing is a romanticized notion of an alliance, which in reality doesn't occur because the ANC decides and informs you whether you like it or not, it moves on. Just to clarify that as to, and then secondly, this day of national action, exactly towards whom will it be directed at? What would be the demands? Is this a one-off thing or a protracted strike with tangible demands? Thank you.
Well, I think Comrade Mike will come in. I want to start with this one. The strike will be a protected strike. That's why we talk about Section 77. It's an economic strike in terms of the LRA. And the action will be targeting business, because these are the people who are retrenching workers. These are people who are giving Section 189, employers, which include government. Because in the public service, we do have members. And we can't say public workers are not faced with the challenge of attack of the collective bargaining. Issues of retrenchment, issues of not respecting the rights of workers is an attack to the collective bargaining. So it will be directed to private sectors and public sectors.
Okay. No, okay. This alliance has always been romantic. It has been nice. So maybe let's just start by this background that unlike in previous elections or in otherwise a stable environment, things happen to be moving very fast. This time around post-elections, it's not the time that is a terrain that we are familiar with. So many political parties went to the elections. None of them received an overwhelming majority to form government alone. And clearly, a way forward needed to be found, and it needed to be found mostly and first and foremost among the people who contested elections, which is the political parties. We have played our part, we have contributed, we have campaigned vigorously for the African National Congress. In fact, we have never campaigned this hard before that we did this time around. But ultimately, it is the political parties that needed to find one another, given what the voters have said to them. And secondly to that is that we have always maintained that we are an alliance of three independent alliance components: the African National Congress, SACP, and COSATU. Independent, in other words, that we are within our right or reserve our right to take decisions the best way we see it, even if to the disagreement of our alliance partners. And I think it should be noted that given the pressure the African National Congress is going through now, perhaps that became the safest way for them to go into their own internal National Executive Committee, independently take decisions as they see it fit, because they also have other political parties to contend with. Having said that, there was an Alliance Secretariat meeting prior to the sitting of the National Executive Committee meeting, in which the direction which was to be taken about forming a government was engaged. We did indicate our view, preliminary, as the national office bearers at the time, that we would prefer a minority government. And a follow-up meeting was to take place. It didn't take place until the National Executive Committee met and pronounced on the government of national unity. So yes, there was a little bit of engagement, of a briefing, but the NEC took a decision, and once that had happened, we're an alliance partner, we needed to respect that. We could not scream any more than that, except indicating our opposition to allow the Democratic Alliance to play the music, or to call the tune for that, as you will see now in the media. And at that time, we were in opposition, particularly on a grand coalition between the ANC and the Democratic Alliance, we knew that once we go to the government of national unity, there will be no way you're going to exclude the Democratic Alliance. Because if it's the government of national unity, you need to include almost everybody who is prepared to participate. So we had just to continue to indicate that which we are against the ADA of accepting that they will be in the government of national unity. Post that, when the statement of intent was now engaged with the political parties, there was an Alliance Political Council meeting, which we attended, which we were briefed. So we want to separate being briefed and being consulted, because those are two different things. So when you are consulted, understanding that even when you are consulted doesn't mean that your views must be taken into consideration, but at least you were asked for your view. You were consulted. But we were briefed about the statement of intent as it was now done, that is the direction the ANC have chosen to go. The SG of the ANC came here in this boardroom in the Central Executive Committee of COSATU, also further brief the highest decision-making board of COSATU, which is the CC, about the same thing and the direction the ANC is going. So we appreciate that briefing. And also accept and respect that the ANC in this instant have chosen to be clear about the independence of each one of ours. So, were they meeting? Yes. Were there consultation? No. Were there briefing? Yes. There was a briefing. I hope I've clarified the two comments. Okay. And I think on the strike, it is both private and public, the GSF responded. We know now, moving towards the election, long before the elections, particularly in the mining sector, particularly in the post office, telecommunication, and a number of sectors that have been disseminated jobs. And again, even in the public service. So we feel that these are some of the rights that are under threat, even more now in the government of national unity, which includes people who have never stood for the workers' rights. They have never stood for the creation of employment. In fact, some of them, they came here, they declared this house an enemy number one of the country. They are now today part of the leaders. From where they stand, the workers, those belong to COSAT, are the enemies of the growth in this country. So we are sure that we are in for a bumpy ride in front of us, and that is why we felt the CEC it is important for us to focus also on consolidating our unity so that we can be able to resist the onslaught that is going to come towards the way of workers.
Sorry, so we don't have a date for the National Day of Action yet?
No, we don't, but it will be between August and September. Currently, we are doing what is called build-up, mobilizing workers, informing workers with all the challenges that we're facing. The strike, National Day of Action will be between August and September.
Are there any more questions?
Thank you so much. It's Munamani Kai News. Are you concerned about the delay likely to be through the GNU on the signing of the Pension Funds Amendment Bill? But also, what other concerns with regard to legislative amendments that, as COSATU, are waiting for, might also take a turn under the GNU? Thank you.
There's one last question here from Katlego, SABC. In reflecting on the elections, did you maybe get to a point of understanding what happened? Because you had said that you campaigned alongside the ANC, but you did not get that outright majority. Did you get to the bottom of what really happened here as to why you find yourself in this position? And did you at some point maybe touch on the emergence of the MK party and what the challenge that is presenting then for the tripartite alliance? Is this something that maybe you touched on as the CEC going forward? How are you expecting for this to be resolved?
Okay. No. Definitely, we are concerned about the delay. Up to now, we have not been consulted in terms of establishment of cabinet. As I said earlier on, we hope that the leadership of the ANC, in particular the president, will consult the alliance partners in terms of establishment before he do the announcement. Yes, we are concerned about some of the policies, some of the legislation. For an example, as the President Mike has said, we do have people who are anti-workers, who are part of the national unity, for the government of national unity. And that's the concern, that they may come back and say something else, even though in the briefing that Comrade Mike is indicating that we briefed in the political council, we did raise, but we were told that we should not be worried because the ANC is leading in that national government. One of the policy or amendment of the Labour Relations Act that has not been finalized by NEDLEC engagement is the amendment on Section 189. Because we have made a submission that the Section 189 under the Labour Market Chamber must be amended to make it very difficult for the employers to retrench workers. You will recall we've announced these things publicly, that we want to make it very difficult, that these employers must not wake up in the morning and give you a letter, that, as Comrade Mike was saying, giving you a letter that we're intending to retrench, come to the table, they come there and just tell you that we are retrenching. We want to make it difficult for the employers to do that. That's one of the critical amendment of the Labour Relations Act that we think it may be stifled in that discussion. The issue of the occupation health and safety, combining it with the mine health and safety. You remember the occupation health and safety of 1993, still we have made a submission of amending it, but also consolidate the Mine Health and Safety Act and the Occupational Health and Safety Act of South Africa to be one. Because currently the Mine Health and Safety Act is very important. It's got issues that really talk to workers. But the Occupational Health and Safety Act, workers have no right to refuse to work in an unsafe area. But in the mining they do have, so we want them to be combined. That's one of the issues that we think that this political parties who are anti-workers may lead one of the portfolio committee, sit in the chair in the portfolio committee as a chair, but at the same time as a minister may delay this amendment. I think the president has spoken about DA, the manner in which they conduct themselves, and we're unapologetic that DA continue to consistently to present issues of racism. You know, you have seen it. One of their members who is in parliament, who made statement that is very, very, very dangerous to and threatening the workers in particular. And the DA says, no, he's suspended, he must be investigated. Our call is that he must be prosecuted. There's no difference between the statement made by the president of EFF and the statement made by House. The same thing, it's racism, and racism is criminal. He must be charged and face the music. I think the president will take the last from Katleho.
Okay. Just before the Katleho, the pension reforms, it is important to note that the sixth administration, the National Assembly and the National Council of Provinces have approved these bills.
Yeah.
So we're not worried about that because it's a question of signing. Having approved, the sixth parliament also set up a implementation date, which is the 1st of September. So everything else that was done by the sixth administration and have timeline, it will be very interesting if there's any chance of reversing that. So we think that once the thing of engaging with the putting up the cabinet and the policy of GNU, the president will find time sign. We know he has been signing a whole lot of bills almost every weekend since the past few months because they were made. So we want to assure the workers that from where we stand, there's no chance of reversing the issue of the two-port system because the necessary bills were passed by the National Assembly and the National Council of Provinces. We will have loved that by now, because the Parliament has also passed it. The President will have signed or must sign the Public Procurement Bill into Act, because it is important for the public procurement to cap issues of corruption and crime and fraud, but also to have transparency in what the public procurement, particularly in the area of energy, like ESCOM, and so on and so on. But also to help to implement what we call local procurement, because that's what is part of what is contained in that in that public procurement bill, so that everything that must be procured by public, we must prioritize local procurement in order to stimulate jobs and help the manufacturing sectors of our country, so that the economy can grow. So that's one part I wanted to raise on the bills that are there. And of course, now that we're in the GNU, whether or not all the manifestos are going to come together and formulate a new policy that is not included in any of the manifesto, it's an animal that we have to see it once it gets shaped going forward. Did we go into what happened in terms of our analysis during the election? We did, but we didn't finalize. An ongoing assessment. I'm sure you will know that from the 30th of May, everybody was an analyst in this country. I'm sure there's very few people who did not try and analyze what happened. Almost everybody I met was analyzing what happened. So we didn't want to fall into the trap of just taking about any analysis or commentation that is taking place out there. So we're being systematic in our analysis, and also assessing, because we also had election structures that we have put out there to ensure that we run the election, but also characterize the moment, because surely this moment is not an ordinary moment. It's a moment in history that it's quite telling and watershed. So it's an ongoing. We know that we went into elections with groupings of political parties have formed themselves into trying to bring the ANC below 50%. One of the things that we can tell you now is that it became apparent that even though the neo-colonial right-wing political parties as led by the Democratic Alliance and its splinters, the one that have broken away from it, in trying to consolidate the right-wing agenda, they formed themselves into what they call the Moonshot Pact, or a multi-party charter, in which they were hoping that collectively they are going to get 50 plus 1%, so that they alone can form a government. And they were calling the other possibility without them a doomsday. So if you go to metaphor, so there's a moonshot, which is theirs, and then there's a doomsday, which was another coalition, possibly the ANC with other people. But we can say that the South African voters, even those who might have alienated by the ANC or have left the ANC, they rejected that consolidation of the right-wing agenda by the Democratic Alliance. And that's a message that we think everybody else who is discussing the coalition must not lose, that the right-wing agenda was rejected by the majority of voters. Whether they went to the progressive or not, but the fact is they rejected the Moonshot Pact collectively, and it's an attempt to consolidate a neo-colonial dispensation in our country. I don't know why we should have assessed the emergence of MK Party, because there were many parties that emerged during these elections. There were others that emerged in the last local government elections. There were many that came around. Yes, the MK Party became a factor. So from where we stand, is that MK Party, like any other political party, is a political player in our country's body politics, which we'll have to contend with moving forward. Of course, we noted, because we went to the ballots trying to get a progressive agenda, in this case as represented by the ANC. We noted that some of the things they stand for seeks to take us back, particularly in our quest to build a national unity, or a national state, or one unitary state for that matter, because they sometimes advocate for something that borders on federalism or even feudalism for that matter. that we must subject ourselves to the monarchy, something that many of the African countries were trying to move away from. But other than that, or beyond that, we have to accept that they are political players. They've entered our space. They will have to be engaged with or to be interacted with the same way South African society is interacting with any other political parties in the country. There was nothing major that we thought needed to be resolved to isolate the MK party over DA, because our enemy is DA, it's not anybody else. Because the DA has declared us as their enemy, so we are returning the favor, but not the MK party or any other party for that matter. Thank you. President. Okay. Don't worry about Muluku. He's going to Parliament. He's going to be sworn in, so when he's quiet, he's preparing his.
Thank you.
Are there any other requests for one-on-ones besides Muluku? You also would like to ask.
Well done.
Yeah.
We need one-on-ones.
That's fine, but we're done. They will ask. They will tell us what do they want. So,
Who's available for us?
For SABC?
Yeah, I need two. I'll
And
start
two?
with you and I'll start with I'll start with
the GS.
Okay.
So the one will be live and the other one is going to be a preview.
all right with you?
I'll start with you.
Okay. But we're from the same organization.
No.
This is what I question. This man. So why don't you just take any one of us?
So you